There's a certain element of just going out and having fun. And flat out, throwing a decoy on your head.
That's why I say use as many tools as you can, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, Aron went after this goat. He's got a pack on and a bow in his hand, and he's so focused on that goat, he comes to the ledge, and he's just like, I've jumped stream bed, and he jumped that and just kept chasing that goat. And then as he came back, and he was like, he had a hard time jumping back. He's like, what was I thinking?
What was I not thinking?
Yeah.
So even to my goat, there's 2 trees, like 2 little, like they were growing out the edge of the cliff, how they're on the edge?
Yeah.
I slid down, left my bow, dropped my bow, slid 10 yards down to that thing on my butt, like baseball slid, aiming for those trees with my feet to stop myself from going off, grabbed him by the horns right as he did, that they do the straight-legged death push?
Yeah.
Right as his butt went off of the cliff.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We're here at the Western Hunt Expo. I got Branden VanDyken with me, and this is Branden VanDyken Podcast 2.0.
Yeah, we had a little issues.
We had a little glitch.
Yeah, a little glitch last time.
We did one at...
a really good one, I thought.
I know, it was so good. It was me, you, Snyder at Big Sky.
Yep.
And I didn't get the audio recorded. I've done that 3 times.
I can see why. When
3 out of 300.
You were back to back on podcasts that day.
It just didn't, Now I have better gear than I did. So it's got redundancies and fail-proof measures. So I don't even have to have anybody here to help with anything, and I don't have to worry about it running out of, I usually start every interview with 6 hours of battery, won't shut off, extra memory cards, that one holds 2, so if one runs out, the other one kicks over. Yeah. Same with all the audio. It's all hardwired into the wall. So today, we should capture everything. It's a bonus, huh? That'd be good, huh? So, Branden, introduce yourself. Tell folks a little bit about yourself. There's people who know you in the industry and people who follow you on Instagram and social media. For those who don't, fill them in.
I guess I'd have to say how I got started was I'm born and raised in Montana. Never hunted out of state, but we have a target-rich environment there, I would say, and very, very good opportunity. So I've never left state, never done anything, but I got kind of my thing was spot and stalk antelope. And so through that, I had a buddy that started a little company called Be the Decoy. I am not building. I did not start it. I got brought in later. But I am partners on that with a buddy, and we own that company out of Bozeman, Montana. And through that, other opportunities opened up where just through helping him develop that, with ideas on that, it kind of opened doors to other companies and products to work with. So I do the pro staff thing, but not necessarily pro staff. I've gotten pulled into a lot of stuff with other companies and developing products and using them because I spend so many days in the field. And I get to put insight in on what comes out.
Yeah. From
boots to gear to, for clothing, backpacks, what have you. So.
And we talked about that on the other podcast a little bit because Be the Decoy, you're putting a foam hat on your head.
Yeah.
And, I was highly skeptical.
Which everybody is when they first see it. The only reason I even knew it would work is because my dad tried something back in the 80s. I remember him taking an old Antelope, the foam mount, and he fastened it to where it would fit on top of a hard hat. And he was doing that back in, the 80s.
Yeah. And it's unreal. Now you're seeing people do this, and they walk up to an animal and get within bow range in a way you wouldn't without that.
Yeah, and there's a lot out there, and I don't care which one you use. I want everybody's
a lot of decoys out there.
And a lot that, since ours has come out, that are very similar to ours. Whether it's, I can't remember all the names of them now. Heads up, theirs is more like the Montana Decoy style, which has been out, that folding one that you can attach your bow, you can hold it, you can put it in the ground, whatever. To the one, I can't remember the name of the one that you shoot through. That has actually one of our, it looks like people thought it was ours because it has one of those foam heads on the front of it, but it attaches to the front of your bow and you shoot through it. And they're all, I tell people to use ours in conjunction with some of those because any tool you can get to help if you don't have an ego and you just want to kill stuff and whether you're new to the game or you've been doing it 26 years, or more.
Dude,
everything can help you because every animal's different.
To me, it's all about fun.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but there's a certain element of just going out and having fun. And flat out, throwing a decoy on your head or having a heads up in your hand or something, which I've done, and I've walked straight at an animal with the decoy, and it buys you that time, and you get close, the adrenaline's pumping, you're getting there, and now you're trying to get that shot off, and the animal's like, wait a minute, what?
And all you're really doing is buying, like everybody's like, well, I wasn't able to walk right up on him. I was like, well, you don't always, it doesn't work the same way, but all it's really do is to buy you a couple extra seconds where just arrange them, get to full draw, get settle your pin, whatever. That's why I say use as many tools as you can, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
Like what product you're trying to sell somebody. Like that's the reason there's new products every year, because everybody's trying to find that little thing that gives them that much more edge, Well, and it's absolutely true that it works at times. When it works, and you can get this critter you've been after for a long time because you just had that split second of time where it's like, what? Looks right at you, and it's like, oh, wait, it looks like a deer, it doesn't look like a deer, and then whack, he's dead. It's like where normally it'd look at you and bolt. Yeah, and that's even our decoy set aside, like anything that comes out, like there's skeptics of everything new that comes out. Like the big one right now is e-bikes.
Yeah.
Everybody's, that's cheating. Well, not necessarily. Would you rather spend a half hour hiking into a spot or 10 minutes riding your bike into your spot?
Right.
I mean, it's, and then take that physical toll out of it. I mean, that's a little advantage right there. Set aside the time that you save going in there, but the physical exertion you put on your body. Like, I think anything that you can find to make it easier. Like, there's a reason we still hunt, because it's hard.
Yeah. If the technology you choose to use for your hunt is legal, it doesn't have a negative ecological impact. If all those pieces come together, then it just boils down to the experience I want to have. And but there's certain areas where I hunt where having a decoy is a game changer, and then other places where I'm like, I don't really need this.
Yeah. Well, and even I would go to as far as, honestly, I don't think that I really need. I've dialed in my spot and stalk techniques. Not to say that I'm perfect at it. I'm not. Yeah. I still do, regardless of people think. I still screw up and I still miss, and there's something that can constantly go wrong. But not everybody needs to use our decoy. It's not for everybody. And not everybody needs an e-bike. Not everybody needs a rangefinder. Right. I mean, there's certain guys that can, out to 70 yards, you can ask them what the yardage is and they'll be, spot on.
Yeah.
So I think it really boils down to, everybody's needs for their style of hunting and how they hunt are different. So the negativity of telling somebody they can't use or they shouldn't use or using something is stupid, well, that differs from person to person.
Yeah. How do you like to use the decoy?
Personally, we call it's a decoy, but it's not a decoy.
Yeah.
It's a spot and stalk tool. So still, I tell everybody, one, the hardest thing I think about spot and stalk that I think a lot of people early on, and even people that I know have been doing it for a long time, the biggest mistake I ever see is how they read terrain. So my thing that I tell everybody is still get as close as you can possibly get without that animal knowing you're there, because the element of surprise is always the best. Mm-hmm. That's what, even to elk hunting, I don't, especially a spot that we hunt a majority of the time, we do have those lodgepole timbered stuff that we hunt quite a bit, and that you do call in there to find them and, to locate them, we'll call in there. But I would much rather, if I know elk, if I can see them, I can kill them.
Yeah.
That's my theory. So, but at the same time, don't be a gopher. So when you're stalking, don't constantly pop up, give your head look, pop up.
Don't play peekaboo.
Yeah, peekaboo. And, I have a couple of they struggle with that. They have to know.
Is it still there? Is it
still there? Is it still there? Did it move? Did it move? And antelope are notorious for that. We joke around a lot, just going to antelope. Mule deer, usually once you bed them,
they stay there.
They stay there for, mule deer move when the sun hits them again. For the most part, I tell people, get as close as you possibly can without resisting others, like peekaboo.
And how do you do that?
That's one thing that's really hard, and I I've been asked to do like seminar stuff, but I'm not good. Like, as you know, I don't do a lot of video on my hunts. I used to when we first started the company, just to show people how it worked, and it did work. And that was just until we got people using it that were doing it for us.
Yeah.
But learning how to read rolls, like little swells, like anything, any
fold in
any geographical change, like how minute, like, yes, there are pancake flats, but they're usually, I'd say that even still 93% of the time, I'm picking that number, I'm just saying not 100% of the time, it's not a pancake when you look at it. There is some sort of roll that'll get, and it might suck, you might have to belly crawl for 2 hours. And that is, like, going back to the whole thing with antelope, that's kind of tough because antelopes seem to, very rarely do they stay in one spot for
that long.
And that's what cool thing about antelope is, especially in Montana with our 900 tag, it's anywhere in the state with a bow. You can hunt them all day long if you want, from sunup to sundown. And that's the number one thing that intrigues me about it. Because I can hunt that animal all day long. Whereas mule deer, whitetail, elk, a lot of those ones I like to, like mule deer, you can but if you aren't there at daylight to see them go to bed, then you have to turn them up in their beds. So you have to spend a lot of time behind the glass. So it's not as just like antelope, or seriously like the way we hunt them is put a lot of miles on a truck.
Yeah.
Drive, you're glassing as far, stopping and glassing spots that you've seen them in the past, or that looks like there should be antelope in there. And you might get one 100 yards off the road that you can try to figure out how to go get out of sight with the truck and get a stalk on, or you might see one far enough off that you can take directly away from the truck and start a stalk on him.
Yeah.
But once you screw that up, not really that big a deal. Let's go find another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the biggest thing I'd say is learning how to read
topography.
And that's really hard. Like that's
South Cox talks about that. He calls it micro topography.
Yeah, because there's finding those,
like
finding your niche,
it's a little
finding
fold,
that little thing,
a little hill, and he's like, you start making your approach, and you're like, there's no way I can get to it. There's just no way I can get there. He's like, then you figure out which way the wind's going. You approach it from the right, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I could get to that bush, and then if I drop in that little gully, I can make it all the way to there, and then from there I could actually. And sometimes he doesn't know from there what he can do till he gets there, and then he's like, oh, well, there's a tree between us. Now I can just kind of walk between. And next thing you know, he's like, you're like there.
And the biggest mistake I watch when I'm like, this year was really frustrating because I killed mine again early on, my antelope. And then I take buddies because I have places that I can go and I have buddies that I like to hunt with. You know how that is. You got guys.
For sure.
Or I'll bring buddies out that I've met in the industry that want to come hunt with me. Mm-hmm. And you'll sit at the truck, and I can pretty well, usually really quickly now because I've done it so much, break down what I want my stock to look like where I'm going to go. I can see where I want to go, and I'll tell them, like, okay, if it's me doing it, I would go through here and here and here. And then they'll get out there. And the one thing that you also have to be willing to do is that may not – you'll get out there and realize, like you were saying, well, I didn't see this. And a lot of guys try to force it, especially just because they
belly crawled for an hour, and now they're like, dude, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I don't want to belly crawl back out. But don't force it, especially if it's something you actually – if it's an animal that's worth it, back out. Don't be scared to back out. And don't be – change your plan. Be able to you have to be able to roll with the punches.
I agree with you. Like, the biggest reason I back out normally is because by the time I get to the place where I think I need to be for my final approach, the wind isn't good there.
Yeah.
I thought it was good based on this side of the mountain, but now that I'm on that side of the mountain, I'm like, it's all different over here.
Well, and to your point on that, so going to, like we talked about, we'd probably change where we were going with this.
Yeah.
But going to remember your goat hunt.
Yeah. You watched my goat hunt film night before last.
Yeah. It was very good. Expo. If you guys need to look it up and watch it. It's very good. Well, it's what people don't realize about that is that's totally different. Like, most people have not hunted in that kind of country. And you got to be in a different kind of shape, which you can get in shape for it. That's fine. But it's also like you said, you can see animals. You
can't shoot.
There's nothing. You're not doing anything with them.
Yep, you're just staring at them, especially with archery equipment. You
can see animals you can kill that you're like, well, if I kill it, how do we get it out of there?
Which, Aron made a choice on his goat.
And he paid for it.
And he paid for it, where he went to the top. I mean, the top of the world in this area. Daunting cliff. I mean, there are a few times where it's like they could die, on some sketchy like ledges they're walking on to get to where this goat is.
And I've done that. I've done, Montana, we have those unlimited sheep hunts. I've done it 6 years. We have yet to kill a sheep, but that's also why we switched our goat tag to where I ended up killing mine. And I'm going to say some because spring bear, I put myself in situations on that too. But some of the dumbest things I've ever done have been up there.
Yeah. Same here. You get into it and you don't realize. You're like, oh, I could make it to there.
You can get there.
And then it's like, how do I get down?
How do I get down?
And then, and I should clarify with Aron's goat. At the top of that mountain at 2,000 feet or whatever up in the sky, the difference between his goat dying on a ledge and, 50 feet from him where he can just pack it out on a completely safe spot and it actually dying 20 feet to the left and then falling off a cliff. You're talking inches. And you don't know when you shoot an animal what it's going to do.
Yeah.
The goat that I shot, had I not hit it with the follow-up shot, it would have had all four legs still.
Mm-hmm.
It could have climbed the cliff that we were on, and gone up. In minutes, and really he could have been 100 feet in the.
Yeah, and really to make it out of where you can't get to it. The kind of stuff 50 feet's enough that you can't get to it.
Yep. It could have run up there and died 50 feet higher on a ledge where I could never get to it.
Yeah.
And
then like in Aron's case, it could go 50 feet's enough to do it. It still could have broke it up and tore it all up like Aron's did. He'd fallen off 50-foot cliff.
Yeah.
As regard to what his did was 1,000, but is what they're guessing close in elevation.
It
tumbled a long ways.
It did. It fell at least 1,000 and then another 1,000.
Yeah. And it was basically a bag of hamburger at that point.
Yep. The meat was good though.
Yeah.
We ate the meat and everything was there was nothing to get rid of in the meat department, which surprised me. I thought with that kind of tumble and that kind of fall that the meat would be bruised or damaged somehow in a way that would make it not edible.
Yeah.
Wasn't the case at all.
Well, that's like with anything bloodshot. The quicker you take care of it, the more of that you can prevent from spoiling or going bad. Anyway, in the difference too, to you guys were in BC, right?
Yeah. So
it's not like some states like here that's a once in a lifetime hunt. Like a lot of those guys, you're taking a chance at ruining your not that that's the biggest thing, but you're taking a chance at ruining your trophy.
Yeah.
And out of respect to the animal, I feel you should take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And
for Aron, he got to that point where that goat was there and it ran out to a flat spot where, okay, if he shot it there, there's a big old 20 by 20 area where it could just lay down and he shot it and it looked like that's what happened. He pinwheeled it. Double lung heart,
They're so tough.
And it ran and laid there and it was like, oh, sweet. And then
the death bush.
And then it fell.
So
and it's like, man, it's a game of inches. When you're hunting a goat with a bow and arrow or a sheep, something like that in those cliffs, you get an opportunity and you have to ask yourself, do you take it, do you not take it? I probably would have done the same, just hoped that the goat.
Well, in those, how many opportunities are you going to get?
We only got those two.
Yeah, you have to weigh that, and that it sucks, but you have to weigh. You're weighing all and it all has to everything we've just talked about, and it's taken us 5 minutes to talk about this. You have to decide that in seconds.
Seconds, I know.
So,
and I actually the goat that I had in my sights, and like I said in the film, I don't know, couldn't field judge a goat, male or female, Nanny or Billy.
Yeah.
So I'm over a goat, and I'm like, that's a pretty good looking goat to me.
Yeah.
And I'm 18 yards from this goat on a nice ledge, and I'm like, that thing, and it's a 10-foot ledge. And if I shoot him and he runs and stuff and he stays on that ledge, I'll probably die on that ledge. But he's 500 feet off the ground.
Yep.
So what if he in after he gets hit, he runs and jumps up on this other ledge where it's a 3-inch ledge.
Yeah, then he's going to roll all the way
and then dies.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know, and so you're like, do I take my 18-yard shot where I'm going to guarantee I'm going to kill this thing? But now it might fall 500 feet.
Yeah. Well, and I like going into mine, I had horror stories from buddies with rifles.
Yeah.
Like they pinwheeled them 2 or 3 times with a very high caliber rifle, and they still had them make it a couple hundred yards to the cliff that they thought they were clear of. Like didn't have to worry about it. So even to my goat, like we shot him. He was a good 400 yards above this. It was a 90-foot cliff run below us, and I was like, and he was in an avalanche shoot. I was like, there's no way he's getting down there if I make a good shot. And I got 2 good shots in him, like both right behind the shoulder. He was coughing up blood when he took it. The blood trail was 18 inches wide on both sides. He still made it 400 yards, and guess where he decided to die? I mean, he was going for that. And the one reason I decided to shoot mine early in the season and shoot it, I didn't care about hair. I was like, I just wanted a mature billy with my bow, is I knew I wanted to bow hunt. I didn't want to rifle hunt. That's just a personal thing. Like, if it would have got late, I would have probably jugged the rifle. Right. In Montana, it is pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime tag. Like, yes, I can, after my 7 years, I can start applying, I can draw again. But I was looking at it as a once-in-a-lifetime. I want the trophy. I want the meat. I don't want to ruin any of it. And I'd heard all those horror stories. And mine still made it there. And I ended up getting a 3rd arrow in him. Like, after he went down on that, he was on he made it to that cliff, and he was on a ledge. It was the one we ended up field dressing him and boning him out and caping him out on. We had about 5 feet, and it was about 15 feet long. And where he actually died, though, he made it around the corner of the cliff, and there was a little cliff, like a little shelf, about the size of my tailgate of my truck. Mm-hmm. And I hit him the last time on that big one. He made it around the corner, and I saw a little chute, and I was like, well, maybe I can get to him there. And I ran over there, and I could see him right below me, and he was going down on all fours. And there's 2 trees, like 2 little, like they were growing out the edge of the cliff. You know, they're on the edge. Yeah. I slid down, left my bow, like dropped my bow, slid 10 yards down to that thing on my butt, like baseball slid, aiming for those trees with my feet to stop myself from going off. Grabbed him by the horns right as he did. You know that they do the straight-legged death push? Yeah. Right as his butt went off of the cliff.
It's a little Cam Haines doll sheep action on the edge of a cliff there. Like,
and my wife was, like, she's heard the story now a couple of times, like, but it's one of those things I was convinced. I mean, it was probably dumb.
Yep,
most likely.
I'd say it was dumb.
Probably
dumb. Yeah,
probably.
But we do that stuff.
But
dude.
It was like you said, split second decision. Like you have seconds. So like, and I was like, I'm not going to go off.
I got this.
I can do it. Like But we ended up having to tie him, like we tied him with paracord to that tree. So, we gutted him on that ledge, and then it was a little step, like we had to step over onto that bigger one. So we lifted him and kind of heaved him over there, took turns. But then even get him off that. So he was down on that cliff now. And he's only, it was seriously to go back up where we came. We had to go through this little, and by the time we came out, like with both packs, my pack was at like 115, and my buddy's pack ended up being around 95 with the meat and the cape and all the gear we had with us. We had to get off there, we had to weigh, okay, do we go back up, which to get up to where it's not terrible, and we could go around, get through the cliffs, or we looked around us for a way down that 90-foot cliff. It was easier to actually go down and take our packs off and hand them to each other and just hit shelves as we went down. You couldn't, and there's no way we were just keeping the packs on. But going back up, there's no safe way either to go up. And so we weighed that option of now do we go up or down?
Yeah.
And we only had to go 30 feet back up above us to get back up to where we were on decent, or go down to the trail and then back up to camp.
Yep.
And so I just like, hey, if a pack goes, let it go. Like we sat there, we did the little leapfrog and just found our way, like we looked and it looked like we could get down there. And that goes again to reading, like being able to read.
Yeah.
And we did have to alter our trail and go on a little shelf for a little while that we didn't really want to go on, but it was still safe. Like it was for the situation we were in, it was the safest way we could.
Ryan Lampers did a hunt this year on Wilderness. I think it was Frank Church or something along those lines, and they went on some gnarly, some very, very dangerous hills and cliffs, like what you're talking about, to get by. And there was a few times where they're like, "This is foolish."
Yeah.
like this. We got a heavy pack on. We're trying to get through. If we slip, you're dead. There's a lot of like, what are we doing? Gravity is, I think, it's just a deadly thing.
Yeah.
And too many hunters, I think, they're like, oh, what about the grizzly bears, or getting fallen off a horse, or getting kicked in the head, or, or just whatever. When the reality is, up in these kind of hunts, probably the most dangerous thing is gravity.
Yeah.
And
I'd say the biggest thing with hunting in general is that you got to be really careful of is complacency, because complacency kills. And that can be, like you were just saying, horse.
It could be weather.
I know guys that, in Montana, a lot of our hunting is in grizzly bear country, and you go a couple of years without seeing sign or seeing one, and they're in the area.
And you get lazy.
And you don't pay attention, and you stop carrying pepper spray because that's a couple ounces. You stop carrying your pistol because that's a couple ounces. I carry both all the time.
Yeah.
But just even not paying attention.
Yep.
Like to where we're up, like talking about where we were hunting on those goat hunts, one false step. Like you get off that cliff and you're hiking on a spot that you think is, okay, now I don't have to pay attention.
Yep.
That's not true.
Yeah, Aron went after this goat. He missed a goat, and he was trying to get another shot at it, and there was literally like a 800-foot drop, okay? And there was like a 3-foot gap from one ledge to another, and it's like 500 feet to the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's 3 feet. It's not that far. He's got a pack on and a bow in his hand, and the ledge is only like 2 feet wide or so. Like, it's pretty narrow. And he's so focused on that goat, he comes to the ledge and he's just like, I've jumped stream beds and everything, right? And he jumped that and just kept chasing that goat. And then as he came back after he was done, like, in the heat of the moment trying to get that goat, and he was like, he had a hard time jumping back now that there's no adrenaline, no excitement, he's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah. What was I not thinking?
Yeah. And I looked at that ledge and I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty easy leap, right? But the consequences of failure are astronomical. They're death. So I'm like,
you don't get it back.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just not going to make that. I'm not going to do that. And I think I was a lot more I was less careful when I didn't have a wife and kids and felt responsible to that. I think that's why, a lot of young men do dumb things. They don't have the weight of
everybody. Your decision affects everybody else.
Yeah. There's a lot more, this is just me, and I'm taking a chance here. And I take far less chances now as an older man because of those responsibilities and the feeling and need to be here and not risking things where as a young person you're willing to risk.
At the same time, I think you have to scare yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's why I do it.
To not do it again.
Well, I think there is that. Like
you learn from. Well, maybe you'll learn from it. I don't know.
I used to rock climb.
It took me a while.
I used to rock climb every chance I got. Like that's my thing, and that's another thing is when I talk to Ryan, and I think in the future when if I do hunts like that again, I'm bringing rope.
So here's the kicker on telling you we leapfrog those packs down. We had maybe so I told you like a 90-foot guessing. So we already came down 30. We only had 60 feet to go down now, right?
Yeah.
I had 200 feet of climbing rope back at camp in the mules.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it in my pack? I brought it. Why am I going to bring it if I'm not going to take it?
Yep.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's maybe a pound and a half.
Yeah, climbing rope, and there's newer ropes now where there's a lot of strength, not as much performance. But it's gonna hold you. It's gonna hold you just fine. It doesn't weigh what it used to.
Well,
weigh.
even in this situation, I told you my heaviest pack was like 115 is what we weighted at.
Yeah.
When we got back to the mules because we had a pack scale there, and I could have if I would have just taken 100 foot of paracord with us, which weighs nothing.
I know.
And you can use that for everything.
For so much, yeah. For non-life bearing weight.
Yeah.
You could hook your goat to it and lower it to the bottom.
Picking our way down with those ledges without our packs on would have been way safer, way easier. It's still you still got to pay attention when you're doing it, but it was pretty easy to pick our way down that.
Totally different ball game.
If we we could have just lowered our packs to the bottom, and then
that's
fish.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking into. Is some ropes that have the weight to strength that I'm looking for like backpacking scenario, and it's amazing what just like 30 feet can do or 50 feet. You don't have to have 200 feet.
Even like so that we could have hit one of those other shelves and skipped a couple of them where we could have done a couple of them really easy. Mm-hmm. Got our packs again, lowered them again.
It was sketchy. You just need 20 feet of rope or something, and then it's not a huge weight thing. I was kind of surprised. I mean, and there's some modern stuff so I'm going to look into that because, man, Ryan was talking about where he went with his cousin Joey, and they're like, man, a rope would have been a giant difference maker, huge difference maker. Yeah. So I think if you're going to be hunting in those places, learning to use and to have a rope on you is probably one of the most. I mean, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
So the thing is you have a goat or sheep or something, and you're in these cliffs and you're bow hunting this situation, right? And this isn't with bow hunting in general. I'm in the business of sharing these experiences.
Yeah, well, people can learn. Why you're doing podcasts is you're sharing information.
Yeah,
that's what you do.
And I could just show a film where I shoot a goat and the goat just dies easily on some hill, right? Where Aron shoots a goat and it falls 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet, And, I mean, that's a natural, it's what happens. And the difference is inches, right? Between not falling and falling often. So I wanted to talk about it, but how much do you show, Branden? How much?
I agree with you. I'm with you. I wrote that story for Eastman's after I killed it. And how much of that there's a different, like you were saying the other night, of drawing that honesty line of not scaring away people that have never experienced it. Mm-hmm. And this is because I think the criticism comes from both hunters and non-hunters alike. You'll get it from both sides. Just because they don't understand how quick that decision was to make that, how hard it was to make that decision. Like you might have made the call and you might have known, like you'll know right away if you made the right or wrong call. Yep. And you're weighing all that. Like I said, you have split seconds to make a decision that you have to live with, regardless of, like you're saying, like it's just as simple. I think honestly that decision of taking or making the shot is far less important than, like we were talking of, even in the first place going up to that spot if it was an iffy spot to go to, because that's like you said, you weigh the family stuff and all that. That's far more important than a goat tag. Period.
Right. And whether your goat falls off a cliff or doesn't fall off a cliff.
Those guys, when they watch the film or read the story or whatever, they're going to remember what they saw and the end thing of what happened. Like, it was a goat hunt. Mm-hmm. It wasn't they don't have to make all those decisions while they're watching it.
Yeah,
and relaying that is very hard, I think.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for people to see an animal that fell 2,000 feet off a cliff.
I'm sure when you were editing that and going through the footage, you were like, why did I do that? What was it? Trying to remember what you were thinking at the time.
I'm trying to figure out, well, how much do I show?
Yeah.
And since I showed the film, one thing I noticed was there were a lot of people who've come up to me that have shot goats with rifles and guns, or rifles and bows.
Both, yeah.
To a man, every single person has said, goats are hard to kill. They're tough.
I've shot. It's for the ones I've shot, the animals I've taken, species I've taken. It is the toughest animal I have ever I've ever taken myself. Like the toughest. It took them. Well, like you made the comment about I wanted to keep winging it, or I just let that one fly, and then I took arrow material. Well, maybe we won't let it fly because I mean
I got 2 arrows in it, and it's still running down the hill. We have run down the ledge, and now we spot it, and it spots us, and it's moving out. And Aaron's like 60 yards, 70 yards, 80 yards.
Well, that's where you had the difference with yours and mine is I was talking with a buddy who he was a guide. He's guided before, but he's a hunting buddy. And I've taken people out. I've never professionally guided or done that. But you had 2 guys, and you and I both know this. Every guide ever, you get something in it, they're like, get another one, get another one, get another one. And so they'll keep, but it's that thing. You look down and you were smart enough to go, wait a second.
There's a lot of pressure. They're like, shoot it again. I'm like, look,
this is
a low percentage
shot. And I want to, at the end of the day, I already hit it. My job is to get it. So yes, you might have to take a low percentage shot, but I'm going to take the highest low percentage shot I can take and make sure I get that animal.
So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get caught up in the moment and just fire away again. I'm not going to do that. So I climbed down. We took our time this time, got down there, and then he's there behind a rock, and he's done.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. We came over on mine, and he'd made it where they're avalanche shoots, and he made it through and up the first one, and thought no way that because the blood trail he was bleeding. He was red when he went over the hill.
Yeah,
definitely, and perfect shot, 2 of them.
Yeah,
I was like, there's no way he's going more than 100 yards.
Right.
Let alone knowing he's going to make it that 400 down to that cliff. And so we came over the first one, and he was laying across from us, and I looked through my binoculars and saw he's still rising. His chest was still rising. And right as I said, don't move, he's still alive, my buddy kicked a rock down the avalanche chute, and that caused him to jump up. Well, without hesitation, I had already ranged it. I had already done everything. I just drew back and let another arrow, like you said. And there's a tree that was a V, and I was like, well, I should have let him clear it. Like, that was on me. But I was like, I got another arrow in him. Mm-hmm. So, right now I still have 2 arrows left.
Yeah.
Well, that I hadn't shot. I had one that went through him that was still good.
Yes.
But I shoot fixed blades, so I want to be able to spin test them. And
totally.
I didn't know if that arrow would still perform.
Yeah.
But to that, I shot in like you were talking wind earlier, I wasn't paying attention to what wind was doing at that time. And then, you know how those places. The gusts can be huge.
Massive.
And we were standing in the timber, and then it opens up to that avalanche chute, and it's only 40 yards across. And you're not thinking, I don't feel any wind where I'm at. Yep. Well, my arrow got 10 yards out from us, and I could see and read gold tip down the side of my arrow because it turned completely sideways. That arrow ain't hitting that goat.
When Aron took those first shots at that goat, there was an updraft between the goat and Aron.
On the first one he missed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's a giant cavern there. You can't see it.
Yep.
And up that cavern is like a blow dryer, like gust, 60 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour winds.
And he missed twice on ones he ranged.
Yeah. So as soon as the arrow hit that opening, it rose like 3-4 feet.
Yep.
And so,
I'm pretty sure Aron does. I shoot super heavy arrows. I shoot 515 grain arrows for a reason. So
Aaron's right in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's a heavy. Like most guys don't do that.
Right.
And when I have still even on Antelope, you're like, oh, it's only a 15 mile an hour wind, and I'm 40 yards away. I got this, and I'll shoot, and you'll see that arrow come out of the bow, and it starts turning. And if it's not going straight at the animal, if it's not perpendicular to the animal, your penetration, if you hit, it's going to stink. You're going to lose.
I had some problems with not a heavy enough arrow in heavy winds this year. And then, there's questions about, do you take a shot if it's windy like that or not like that? And I'm like, well, some of these hunts I've been on, if you don't take a shot in that, you're not taking any shots at all.
You're done.
Why are you even there?
Yeah, and it goes back to what we've been talking about, that split section. Your wings, there's so many things. That's why I think it's so hard to criticize guys for how they're – yes, I've made stupid decisions on taking shots at animals that I should not have taken. But when you're saying, is this my only opportunity? Like you said, it's a game of inches. Like bow hunting, rifle hunting. If you pass up shots and opportunities, you're limiting your success rate in the end of the day. Do I need all this meat for the year? No, I can afford to go to the grocery store. Do I want to? No, I want to. Right. I'm out there. I want.
It's a tough call because lately I've been like, okay, if I'm the goat on the other end of this arrow, is this a shot I'd want the hunter to be taking at me?
Yeah.
And I start to go, it's right on the edge here, like, because I'm also approaching it from the hunter's perspective too.
Yeah, like I want to be successful.
And and I'm taking shots. I think I have a reasonable, high percentage chance. Otherwise, I'm not taking it at all anyway. I really don't want to wound anything. I really want to make sure this is quick and clean kill. So it's this whole process, like you said, in seconds. And there's emotions. There's 10 days of maybe suffering in the wilderness and cold and wet. You want to go home to see your family. You want to come home with the meat. You want to come home with the experience. And there's all these things that play into it, and you make a decision that maybe sometimes isn't the best one.
Yeah.
Well, but it's hard
everybody's ability is different too. Like you have to know your personal limits.
I flat out cannot make the shots Aron can make.
I don't think many people can.
And so when you hunt with him enough and you're like, well, I saw Aron do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. I think I can do it. I'm really good at the archery range.
Yeah. And and I'll tell you, I have a lot of people, I've shot animals because I know what I can do personally because I spent a lot of time doing it. I know shots that I can take that I would never tell certain buddies to take or ask certain buddies to take.
Oh, even when Aaron's there coaching me and he's like, aim here, do this, do that. There's a wind. Your arrow's going to drift about X far, blah, blah, blah. Aron is so sure about that, where it's going to go.
Yeah, and he's seen you shoot on range. He's got confidence in you don't have in yourself.
Yeah, and so it's worked out. But I would never try it without Aron there as my ballistics calculator to tell me.
Yeah.
And then there are times where I've blacked out where, Aron's told me what to do, and then 5 minutes later the animal comes and does what it's supposed to do, and I go into auto and don't do what Aron told me to do because it's beyond like the standard put the pin here and aim for the heart kind of stuff. And it's like, so I'm Aron's pushed me to limits and that, trying to stretch me as an archer and a hunter, and it's been good for me, but I also am like, okay, I have to draw the line too and be like,
that's out of my comfort zone.
It's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it's okay to stretch the limits of that at times because that's how you grow.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it can be really devastating when to your, just the way just what you stand for, what you believe in to make a mistake like that and didn't live with it.
And at some point, all of us have not taken those shots, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you want to better yourself, you want to get more successful, you want to be better every year at hunting, do it in baby steps. Do it in stuff that you're comfortable with. Don't just don't go from 1 year of your farthest shot. You've come out from out east. You've only taken 20-yard, which a lot of those guys, even a 20-yard shot is a long shot for them because it's so thick of what they bow hunt and they're out of a tree stand. But don't jump from 20 to 80.
Yeah.
And that frustrates a lot. Like I have guys come from out east and they're like, I want a spot and stock antelope hunt. And I was like, well, if you can't shoot 60 yards, there's no point in even going.
Yeah.
We put you in a blind, and they're like, I don't want to sit in a blind. I was like, well, you can get shots inside that 60 yards. And I've shot them at 11-yard spot and stock. But
that's tough.
Out of.
And there's a big difference.
I think I'm at 26 antelope with my bow now.
Yeah.
And I think 3 of them were inside 20.
Yeah, that's not a. And there is absolutely that, hey, just get closer. Right? Yeah. Just get closer. Get as close as you can, and you have, I will not take a shot under X yardage because I know I will, because I can pretty much guarantee success at 15 yards and under, right? 20 yards and under, I'm going to nail it. Anything beyond that, it starts to get questionable. The thing is, Branden, think of all the animals, all the goats, all the antelope you're going to kill when you take the 50-yard shot and anything under that versus how many antelope you would kill if you only restricted yourself to 20-yard shots.
Oh, yeah.
It's astronomically different.
It's night and day difference.
And so it's like, I get it that 20 yards and under is highly effective.
Yep. And if in a perfect world, that's all your...
But you've demonstrated that 50 yards and under has worked a lot of the time as well.
I would say more.
Yeah, right.
From my personal experience, I would say more.
And so it's like, it's always such a hard decision on what to do. My question to you is, because I've just finished the film, and there are people who loved it, some people who also liked it, but felt like it went a little too far graphically. Where do you draw that line?
I think that it's hard to decipher that because obviously it's going to be like we just talked. Like everybody's comfort range is different, so I think that line is different for everybody. Like where you put that line. And so I think, like what I told you the other night, at the end of the day, were you comfortable with it when you're done with it? And everybody's like we're just talking. Everybody's going to critique from what they're looking at it from their point of view of what they think they would do and how they think they would react to that situation. But you and I both know I've been in situations where I thought I'd react a certain way, and I got into it. Like we were talking about stocks, like from the beginning of this, stocking it. You have to be willing to change what you thought, like what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it because let's say it takes 3 shots to kill an elk, right?
Do you show all 3 shots?
Do you show all 3 shots? You just show the 1 shot,
But I mean, look how many network guys do that because the network doesn't want them showing. And then you hear the whole story, and you're like, well, why didn't you show that? Because I think if more people are honest like you were, it would be more accepted. And I think if more I've heard a couple people that claim that the only thing they've ever made was hard shots.
I know.
You and I both know that's not true.
There's not enough.
Animals move.
Animals move, dude. And
situations change.
Yeah, there's wind. There's so many variables, branches, trees. It's just, I don't know. I can't. It's hard.
My thing is, so here's the thing that I do have that is very promising about the whole thing. People questioning what you showed, how your hunt went. I think as a hunter, we have a responsibility to care how we harvested that animal. To do it in the quickest and humanest way possible we can. Best laid plans don't always work. Something might happen. But once you put an arrow in it, it's your job to finish it. And it may not be, I've had rodeos, I'm not going to lie. I've had shots go bad. I've had easy shots that I've screwed up and turned into bad shots. Had nothing to do with the animal moving. That happens too. You can say all you want that every shot is going to hit that 10 ring, hit where you want it to hit. That's not that doesn't happen. You get a little complacent or whatever.
When Aron shot his elk with his recurve, first elk with a recurve, I mean we sacrificed, man. We worked so hard to try to get a bull with a Tradbow, and man, it seemed at some point it seemed like it was just not going to happen. And on the last morning of the last day of our season, we go out in Colorado. We go out, and it's like, okay, call on this bull, comes in to 12-yard shot. Aron hits it and spines it, basically. Drops. Well, it already dropped anyway. It was dodging some.
Yep.
Hits the ground, and it's done. It's done. But, of course, he has to shoot it again because spine isn't going to kill it anytime soon, but it paralyzed it.
Yeah. Followed
up with another shot, and as he was running, he shot it a third time. So it's got 3 arrows in it, one's through both lungs, and it's laying there, and we sit there and we're like, I'm filming Aron. We're like, oh, it's just happened. The elk has not actually expired
yet, yeah.
But it's close.
And you have to sit there and watch it die.
You do. And we were sitting there watching.
And it should hurt a little bit.
And I'm not filming it. But then Aron and I are talking, and we're about 2 minutes into this conversation about just capturing his emotions right after the shot. And he's like, and then he says, the thing gets up on its front legs. I thought it was pretty much dead.
Yeah.
And no, it gets up and starts to try to go down the hill again. And Aron's like, it's like, oh, I hate seeing this. I hate seeing this elk suffer. And he gets another arrow and he shoots it through both lungs. And then he goes and he sits back on the ground. He's like, man, I just wish this thing would I want it. It's uncomfortable. You're happy for the success but you're like, I just want it to die efficiently, quickly, and be done because it's hard to watch. And
well, and I've taken a lot of new hunters, like a lot of people into hunting, and they've been on their first animal, and like my wife, for example, like perfect on her first deer is a perfect, like rifle is a perfect first shot, and he made it 50 yards and he fell over and he was sitting there and doing the death gasp and the moans, mule deer sometimes do.
Yeah.
And she breaks down and loses it. She's like, let me shoot it again. Let me shoot it again. I was like, it's not going to do any good. Like he's dying. I'm like, this is part of it. And you should always feel like the day that I just kill something and I don't feel a little bit of remorse or I'm not happy with what I got because it wasn't big enough or whatever. I think those are all things that every hunter should have at all points. Because there's a reason. Like, I think if you're not doing that, you're not a true conservationalist, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think it should hurt. Like I said, it should hurt a little bit.
Well, like I said in that film, like when I shot that goat, I mean, he looked over the rock at me, and I could tell he was not going any further, and he kind of put his head down. He looked up, and I didn't show that. And then I took the last shot, and he was dead in another minute or so or less. Mm-hmm. When Aron's bull got up one more time.
Yeah. And
at that point, Aron lost it. He's like,
okay, and we all know that Aron's a pretty hard dude.
He's a hard dude, and he's trying to make this thing die efficiently. He's put 2 arrows through both lungs. It had a lot of adrenaline because it got spined and it hit the ground, and he's got one in the rear end of it, as it was. He didn't know. He was just getting more arrows in it as it was running, it was stumbling.
Because just making sure he got it at that point. And I still believe in that. And going back to the same, like it seems like it's topic on this, but going back, it's split-second decisions, and you have to live with what you have to live with that decision.
And it goes up one more, and he's like, oh my, like, and he went in and put another lethal arrow in it, and you're like, you don't want to have to put another one in, but you want this to happen as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't show. I did a little podcast, and the ending of the podcast, I slipped a little bit of that live or that footage in of the first shot, and then like one follow-up arrow. Man, there are a lot of people that did not like to see. They're like, why did you have to show just the one arrow at the end? And I'm like, I didn't think it was that too graphic. It put a line in the sand. It definitely was a stamp of, first of all, Tradbows aren't the same as the compound.
And but to that, like even going back to your thing on ranges, I have honestly had more perfectly good shots inside, I'll even say 30 yards, that for some reason I've found that 40 to 50 yard mark, the animals react a lot less to the bow. So you get like,
that's what Aron,
and you never know, you can't anticipate their duck. Like in that situation, I guarantee that bull ducked on Aron. He spined it because he heard his bow go off, and they are so fast, so fast on reaction time.
I shot a couple whitetail does this year in Texas, and I used my FS5, Sony FS5, and I filmed it at 220 frames per second.
Yeah, so you can see that drop.
And I watched the animals move, and when I showed it to the guys at Sitka that were with me and the whole team, like, check this out. Everyone in the room was like, I'm afraid to shoot now.
Yeah.
Like, how close do you need to be? This one doe was 18 yards.
And I will argue all day long, just through my personal experience, closer is not better.
Yeah.
If you can make yourself, if you can, and I practice I have a place I can go and I can shoot out. I have pins seriously on my bow. My last pin on my bow right now, my setup I have right now is 138. You're
like Aron though. You're like a really good shot.
But I've found, and it all started with doing the tack thing, when it was Bowcast the Bird. That's where I started really, like I had been shooting out. At that time, it was before I was shooting a rover sight. I had 8 pins on my bow, so I had a 90-yard pin, and I found the more time I spent just watching arrows fly, like, 'cause it's really fun to watch them fly at that range, at a target.
Yeah.
But the more time I spent shooting at 90 to 100 to 120, 40 yards now is my that feels like what
sweet spot.
That feels like 20, like what 20 used to be like. 20 feels ridiculously close, which is not. I still shoot those. I still shoot like if an animal gets me an 8-yard shot, I take it.
Yeah.
But I have had far less bad shots due to the animal reacting when I've gotten to that 40, 50, 60-yard range.
Yeah.
And I've had honestly, where animals went the shortest distance after the shot have been in that 50, 60 range. Like, because they didn't hear my bow go off, and I got a pat. Like, I actually had an elk that was still, it was a long shot. A buddy and all the other elk on advice was a little small. It wasn't a big bull, but he actually never took a step after I hit him.
Yeah.
The first step, I hit him, and he was looking around, like looking for the other elk. Was that another elk? He stood there and took it, and I was like, did I even hit him? I was like, there's no way. And all of a sudden, I saw him cough, and blood came out his mouth. And this all happened it was seriously 10 to 15 seconds after I hit him. He was already sidestepping and tipped over 10 yards from where I shot him.
Yeah.
I mean, he never had I think one is that
adrenaline. He didn't know what happened.
Yeah, and we'd been calling a little bit, and so he was I think he thought it was another bull, like maybe he came up and hit him. But he never reacted. My arrow hit exactly, like, turns out it was exact, like I thought it hit right, but I watched it, and then I started how it is, you second guess yourself because they don't react. And arrow ended up, he never even reacted to the noise of the bow or anything, which is, I think, you watch a lot of those whitetail videos, and everybody says, but I'm convinced elk and antelope are even worse at ducking. It's
a thing. It's for real. And so it's I feel like it's a balance. Like you said, it's going to be different from person to person what they feel is appropriate to show on film. And the thing is hunting is messy, especially.
No, and I think that we're getting better as an industry of telling more of the truth.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a slow baby steps, like we're talking, baby steps of how far is too far to tell a real story and how much of that story do you want to tell. And at the end of the day, I think if your first job is to probably convince people that, one, you do care. And you do, and then it's not just about the killing, and that you do care how you do it.
Right.
And then, because I get, like what you were talking about, the fighting I could show the first shot and then me with a dead animal. But that's not the whole story. And you know what? Somebody might take something away from this story, and the next time they're in the situation, it'll make them do that split second weighing of all of everything that could go wrong and go right. They might make a better decision than I did.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think too. It's like someone might convince themselves, well, if I'm this goat won't fall. It won't fall. You tell yourself the best case scenario.
Yeah, especially when you say you put 6 days into it, and you're frustrated, and you just want to be done.
Yeah.
Want to be done and successful.
Okay, and some people I know get up there and be like, I don't think I can hike another day. Like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
Now, do I take it? Do I not take it? It's all an in the moment decision. It's tough to make. But
and I know you've done enough hunts now that everybody says, like, you show, and I think this is another detriment to just showing, like what I was saying, you could have showed the kill shot and a dead goat. Well, then everybody looks at it like, well, that's super easy.
Yeah.
And they don't know all the other stuff that goes into it.
The reality for me was I didn't want that goat to climb a cliff and fall off of it.
Yeah, and that's where I was.
And there was every possibility that was going to happen, that it was going to climb a cliff and that it was going to fall off. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And so putting more arrows into it until it finally died as quickly as possible was the goal. But, man, I'll tell you what, it was, you do the best you can. And it may or may not, work out. And showing what you show is, it's always tough. But at the end of the day, I want it to be a balance. I want it to be a mix. I want to show the truth, but I also don't want to. I wanted to people to understand clearly that we do our best to make it as efficient and humane as possible. But by deciding to hunt with a bow and arrow, you're introducing, and the more primitive your setup is, the more you're deciding that you're going to introduce a level of error into the process.
Less tolerance
for
error.
For accuracy.
And I honestly think, like you with your compound there, what if that would have been a muzzleloader that you had to reload?
Yeah. It's tricky, man. That angle on that shot was really tough. I had a hard time figuring out, should I have used my 50-yard pin instead of my 20?
Yeah, and we shoot, like the wife and my son and I, we shoot a winter league, and we have a tree stand built into the league that we shoot at, and they'll give us. And I grew up instinctive. That's what my dad taught us, and I can still pick up a longbow or whatever, and I can tick off my buddies that have been doing it because I can pick it up, and it's kind of like riding a bike. Takes a couple, first two, I'm figuring out where this bow shoots, and then after that, at 20 yards, I can still pick one up after not shooting one for, quite a while, and I can still shoot what I would be able to kill whitetail at 20 yards.
Yeah.
Very effectively, and 30 has always been my max with the Tradbow. But those, when you put sights, and most people now start with, they've only ever shot with sights, they've only ever shot with the release. Mine on my bow, at that 5 yard, if I decide to use my pins, is my 40-yard pin.
Yeah.
At 5 yards.
Right.
And under. And
I think that was for me too, and so when I took the shot, it was a little lower than what I wanted.
Well, and then when we talked about this, the difference in what you chose to use as a release there, you used something that actually hurt you.
Yep. Yeah.
Whereas
Trying to use a hinge release.
I hunt with an index all the time just because I want it to go off now, and I shoot really fast compared to most people. Like
Aron does too.
Yep.
And so does Ryan Lampers. I've seen him just draw, shoot.
Yep.
Uncanny accuracy at long distances.
But then the difference, I'll give both those guys credit, that they can do is they can switch over, because I've tried even going to a thumb, and I'm not comfortable with it, and I just can't get comfortable with it. But those guys can go to a hinge release or a thumb release, and both of those guys are really good 3D shots too, because they can then they can make themselves take time if they need to too. And I just do my shots all the time. So I mean, those guys, I'll give both those guys credit. I've seen both of them shoot, and they're amazing. But
yeah, it's a thing, man. I'm okay with the film. I'll probably change it a little bit.
Like I said, I think as an industry we're doing a little better job of telling the whole story every time, and you can cross that line of going too far. But I think at the same time, at the end of the day, if you're being honest and you can relay that you do that, you can be honest point of, I screwed up, I made a bad decision or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you can say, I was just trying to do the quickest, humanest kill I could with a situation that I put myself in. Yeah.
I mean, you're using all the skills you have, and now I've learned a few more things.
Yeah.
Some other things I want to practice.
Well,
now.
that's the same thing. If you should every hunt you do, you should come back learning something off. I think that's how you get better, is constantly, and you can still I've learned stuff from new hunters, seeing them do something, be like, wow, I've never seen that situation before.
Yep, absolutely.
So.
Well, dude, thanks for coming on the podcast. This is good stuff, good discussion. And people can find you at BVD.
The BVD.
The BVD.
So Branden VanDyken, and the D starts Decoy. So the BVD Decoy. And then we have our Be the Decoy page, too, on Instagram and stuff. So
awesome. And for a guy that's thinking about using a Be the Decoy, what do you recommend?
If you're going to be doing spot and stalk of any kind, doesn't matter, that's what we want, or something that works pre-rut, post-rut, during the rut. If you're going to be spot and stalk and you got a place, I'm not going to lie, if you got a place that you aren't backpacking way in there or whatever, and you just want a tool that might help you split seconds, might actually decoy them in, it'll work.
Put the headgear on.
Yeah, it'll work. And, you got to be willing to look a little bit like a retard, but
who cares? No one's there.
At the end of the day, like we just talked about, you do whatever you can to try to be more successful. That's what we're doing.
Spot and stalk mule deer and alpine, and being able to get right in there and then pop up and have that deer stop for a sec. I only need couple extra seconds.
And honestly, the mule deer out of all of them is my favorite because at the end of the day, all you're doing is changing the whole human silhouette. And that one has the biggest profile change.
Because the ears and stuff.
And so, I mean, and it works. I mean, elk are where mule deer are, mule deer are where antelope are. So that one actually does work as a buy you time one for all of them.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Very cool, man. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, stay gritty.
I will.
Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself.
What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.